What we do have to go on are these remaining fixtures, and we start that run of 7 Sundays against West Ham, who are in 16th position on 35 points, level with Everton, who are in 15th, level on games played with Everton, only 2 points off Tottenham, who are in 14th with 37, and only 3 points off Manchester United, who are in 13th with 38. So it's not a massive gap just because West Ham are in that position between them and, say, United, or say even up as far as Brentford, who are a further 4 points away in 12th. That's when the gap does seem to start opening up a little bit. It's a disappointing season for West Ham, regardless of what way you look at it. Their most recent results, just for people who might not have been following, are quite interesting. They had a 2-2 with Bournemouth on Saturday. They got beaten rather at Wolves in the previous game, and they had a 1-1 with Everton in the game before that, and a defeat at Newcastle, a 1-0. Defeat to Newcastle at home, a 1-0. And their last win that they registered was against the even more lamentable Leicester City, who are pretty awful this year. And Ruud van Nistelrooy is experiencing quite the run as a manager there at the start of his Premier League career, if he is going to go on to have one. It's a very unimpressive run. And just to fill it out then, so that people know what we're talking about, most people have a good idea of a lot of the players. Their last game, the 2-2 with Bournemouth, they had Areola in goals, Todibo and Kilman at centre half. They had Scarlett and Wan-Bissaka at fullback in the fullback roles. Alvarez, Ward, Prowse behind Kudus, Souček, Paqueta and Bowen. A lot of really good quality footballers there. And on the bench, they could call on Carlos Soler. They had Nicholas Fulkrug. They had Mavropanos. Guilherme came on. Palmieri came on. Fabianski's there as well. Soufala's there. Rodriguez and Evan Ferguson. Sorry, I'm reading out the wrong side there. So, what when you think about this West Ham team and the challenge that they might pose, it's, you'd see a fella like Bowen. Kudus is a real talent. Paqueta is a player that City were being linked with. Thomas Souček was one of the most informed players in the league there for a period. They have good quality footballers that probably belie their current league position, Jan. It would be really lax of Liverpool to take anything for granted here. You can see how they could really threaten through some of those attacking players in particular. When you examine the challenge they'll pose us, what are the areas you're thinking of, both for them and what we might have to do to overcome that challenge?
Well, obviously, it's been pretty underwhelming for a group of players as good as the West Ham players to be where they are. And even since Graham Potter's gone in, he hasn't really been able to influence things to the extent where you think. And the one thing I look at is, if you look at them last year, I know they've had their problems with the terrible accident that Mikel Antonio had, and Nicholas Fulkrug has been injured more or less all season, so they kind of lack that focal point up front, isn't it? But when you look at last season, Mohamed Kudus had a super season. Lucas Paqueta had a great season. He's obviously got this thing hanging over his head with the betting on yellow cards. Jared Bowen last year was superb as well. And so I'm thinking, where is the West Ham player that's had a good season? Ward Prowse was loaned out to Forest, never played, and now they brought him back, and now he's playing. So I just don't see any players who've stepped up and ran with it. Nobody's really helping the manager. So, and because of that, they become a bit of a great team, I think. They kind of play. Obviously, Graham Potter has a clear way of the way he would like to play the game, isn't it? But it's not really happening. There's been a lot of great performances. Listen to the results that you mentioned before, isn't there? There's nothing to excite anyone in there. So it's very much a club that's looking forward to the end of the season 100%. So where can they hurt us? Yeah, of course they can hurt us with the quality they've got, and they might be motivated by a full Anfield. and the fact that Liverpool are going for the title, that might just be what kickstarts them. But in terms of quality, we have better players. Our teams perform better this year, and I expect us to. Got to be careful what we say now, Trevor. I expect us to somehow find a way of winning the game. It's something that we used to say early on in the season, where we said, I think we'll find a way of winning the game. And I think we're back to that on Sunday when we play West Ham. We will find a way of winning the game.
In relation to them, just as a club, there's a couple of interesting things there. You mentioned Graham Potter. I'm curious to hear your take on him as a coach. And he had that spell where he was so highly rated and then got the Chelsea gig. And we all know that those kind of things can sometimes be a poison chalice, depending on who you're working with. And I don't think too many people would be getting excited about necessarily working with Chelsea's owners. They seem to be a law unto themselves. So I'm curious about your take on Potter and whether he's the heir apparent or whatever. And also then Jared Bowen, who's their most standout talent for a couple of seasons and was actually linked quite heavily with Liverpool a few times, and has done very well against us. He is such a dynamic footballer and he really has eye-catching ability. But unless I'm mistaken, I think he went 28 last December. So I'm wondering, this is the question I've got for you on him. Do you see that being that in terms of Jared Bowen, the Premier League player? Is he maybe gone a little bit old to make that final step to a genuinely, top end club? What's your feeling on both Potter and Bowen?
So Jared Bowen is pretty straightforward and pretty quick. I think he was strongly linked with Liverpool last time when there was doubt about whether Mo Salah would sign his contract, and we were strongly linked with him because he fits in perfectly there. He's also a real threat in terms of scoring goals. But if you look at the way that the club sign players these days, what top club is going to go in and pay the type of money West Ham want for the 28-year-old? I just can't see it. So it more looks like this is what he's going to get. Graham Potter's a bit more difficult, I think. It's like very impressive, in terms of his coaching career and, the fact that he started off out in Sweden and did ever so well, came to Swansea, and obviously before he'd even settled in at Swansea, Brighton had seen something that they liked, couldn't wait to get their hands on him. And then again, he did well at Brighton. I wouldn't say he did outstandingly well, but I thought he did well. But sometimes when managers are picked on like playing styles, and sometimes I lack this, can he win? Can Graham Potter win? And that's where I have my reservations. Can Graham Potter actually win? Is he a winner? Is winning important enough for him? Or is there other things that is important for him as well? So that's my big thing with Graham Potter. David Moyes, whatever you think of David Moyes, I believe he's a winner. And I think because he's a winner, he eventually got himself a trophy down at West Ham, didn't he, when they won the Conference League or whatever it was. There's one in there. I just don't quite see the same. I think David Moyes is in the game to win trophies. I don't know whether Graham Potter's in the game to win trophies. But he's in the game for something else and development and, buying young players and develop them and selling them, whatever. So that's my whole issue with Graham Potter. Take nothing away from his career. It's been pretty impressive. But just that, will he ever lift one?
Yeah, I think it's really spot on analysis. I enjoyed that. When you think about how Liverpool might look against West Ham at the weekend, we spoke about Curtis earlier on. I think if he starts, he'll probably be in the midfield if he's starting, because it would appear now that we have an actual right back. I was speaking to you earlier on about the Galaxy brain stuff from Arna, like how Kwanzaa didn't start that game is kind of beyond me, but he's there available to start the game as well. But do you think it's likely to be Bradley from the off? Would you see any other tweaks as well? Because he's looked at starting Jota a couple of games in a row and it seemed to have paid off, where he scores the goal in and had a half decent outing because, if we're honest, he was pretty horrendous in the couple of previous showings that he had. But he was okay against Everton. Again, back to the same sort of ineffectual performance there at the weekend. Do you bring in Darwin Núñez? Has he been any better? I think his cameo there the last day was pretty awful. We're starting to look a little bit thin on the ground there, aren't we, when it comes to the options for actually banging in the goals. If Mo isn't doing it, the sad truth is that Cody Gakpo, who was our second most reliable guy, seems to be really taking a long time to get back into his stride as well. If you had to make any tweaks to the lineup, what do you think it looks like against West Ham? Because, each one of these is a cup final, and he's going to go with the strongest 11. What do you think that is?
Yeah, you feel that way, don't you? I mean, I'd be amazed if Conor Bradley doesn't return as a right back. And he'll probably give the two centre halves. I mean, he's never going to leave Van Dijk out. And Konate, although he's not playing well, I think he'll get another chance. The fact we're at home, he might consider Tsimikas. But I actually think that, apart from Robertson's performance against Fulham, I actually think he's done quite well of late. And in midfield, we're certainly looking leggy midfield. It wouldn't surprise me if Szoboszlai is left out and Curtis Jones starts ahead of him. I think McAllister will start, and I think Ryan Gravenberch will start again. And then in terms of options up front, we still have the options, but the options are now out of form. And that's our biggest problem, isn't it? Our front guys are all out of form because, whether we like it or not, you're just on the goals that you score, and they're not scoring at the moment. So Mo will play, Diaz will play, and then one more. I mean, could he go Gakpo on the left and Diaz centrally, which is an option, isn't it? Or could he want to give shots at another go at home after he scored in the last game against Everton? So I'm going to go shots essentially, and Luis Diaz left.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's likely to be it. But personally, I think I'd go with Gakpo and Diaz through the middle. Myself, I think that's what I'd like to see, because I'm not sure what's happening with Jota, but he just seems to be off it. It is interesting, isn't it, when you think about what he can do to change it up, because other squads who've been more heavily rotated would have the option of starting Federico Chiesa. They would have the option of starting Harvey Elliott in one of the advanced positions, or maybe even in one of the midfield positions, depending on how we're lining up and who you're going against. But neither of those guys, despite their looking really good when they came on the cup final, are likely to feature too much between now and the end of the season. And I wonder, and this is just our last little story on it, there are stories going around at the moment that Harvey Elliott is being sort of made available at a price tag of 40 million. And I think if you're not playing a lad like that, you can see how the club would start to think, well, that's good money that we could get in for someone who might actually be preferred or liked by the manager to start on a regular basis. The Chiesa and Elliott issues. We spoke about Endo earlier on. I think these are two slightly different ones. Chiesa, because he's such a proven footballer on the big stage, and Elliott because he's so young. How do you see their futures panning out, Jan?
Yeah, again, I think if the right offers land for both of them, and I don't know what the right offer for Chiesa. I don't know whether they would even consider loaning out Chiesa, because obviously the manager doesn't fancy him. Unless something dramatically happens in the summer, I can't see Arne Slot really using him. So they might even consider a loan. Harvey Elliott, I think at 40 million, I think that might be a big fee to turn down for Liverpool. Now, in terms of the team for the game on Sunday, I think if you're a Liverpool fan, Trevor, you see plenty of options. If you're a Liverpool fan, you'll go Bradley right back. Kwanzaa could even come in for Konate because of the way he's playing. You think Tsimikas could play instead of Robbo. Liverpool fans would have Endo in instead of Gravenberch. That wouldn't be a problem either. And then we got the options. But I don't think Arne Slot sees that many options as we do. I think he's only thinking, what can I do at the back? Simicaz or Robbo, that's it. In the midfield, Kirsty Jones or Szoboszlai, isn't it? And up front, and he's not keen on making changes in all three departments in this. So he doesn't see the same options as we do.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because we were sold on Arna's ability with his team to keep people fresh and fit, and then we just use the same 11 every week. It is quite interesting, and no one will give a crap, Jan, if the league gets won. So just to wrap us up here, as usual, we'll go to what we always do and have a look at what you think the score might be in the weekend's game.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll win. I think we'll find a way of winning. I think there might be one or two hairy moments. We might be a little bit like today's defenders. So I've got a feeling that West Ham will probably score. So I'm going to go with. We saw the magic of Anfield against Southampton. We'll come out for the second half, 1-0 down, bang, bang, bang. It was only 7 to 10 minutes, isn't it? But that's enough in it. So I've just got a feeling that whatever is going to be needed, I think Anfield will give us a big hand, helping with that. So 3-1.
3-1 we will take very, very happily. We just got to get back on track, Jan, and I think that's what anyone wants. Get this thing done as soon as possible so we can actually celebrate it. I think it's fair to say there'll be an awful lot of people from my neck of the woods, if it does happen, getting over, whether they're floating themselves over on bits of wood or going on the ferry or paying stupid amounts to get on a flight just to be in the city, considering how empty it felt the last time. There was that lack of connection. There's only so much you can get from watching a screen. So I think it will be a wonderful, wonderful time. And hopefully you and I can be having a celebratory pint somewhere around about that event. I think that would be something beautiful to look forward to. But we will be with you, Jan and I, all the way through the remaining fixtures from Sunday to Sunday until this thing gets done. And we just have to hope and assume that it will. So until the next time, from myself, Trev Downey, from Jan Molby, this is Molby on the Spot. We'll talk to you soon. And we are out.